Welcome to Dysfunctionally Yours, the podcast where we embrace the chaos, laugh through the struggles, and find hope on the other side of trauma. I'm your host, Brittany, and if you've ever felt like your life was a beautifully messy roller coaster of dysfunction, trust me, you're in good company. Here, we'll have real, raw, and sometimes ridiculous conversations about mental health, relationships, and healing, because let's be honest, life isn't always pretty, but that doesn't mean we can't come out of it stronger and maybe even smiling. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of bubbles, and let's navigate this wild journey together, dysfunctionally, but never alone.
Welcome back, friends. Oh, God. Yikes, we're trying something new, and I just need a sound guy. I need a sound guy to help me, because that is something I have not mastered yet. Yikes. Anyways, welcome back, friends, to Dysfunctionally Yours. I'm your host, Brittany. Also, look at my frog and toad shirt. I know if you're listening on the podcast apps, you can't see it, but it's a frog and toad shirt, and it's adorable. Frog and Toad's Wild Ride is actually my favorite ride at Disneyland. Why? I don't know. It's not like it's like wild and crazy and anything. I just really love it, and I love a good Frog and Toad story, right? Anyways, I love it. I'm obsessed, and I was feeling a little nostalgic. Uh also, I swore that I was not going to get on the like I wasn't going to jump into the pumpkin spice bandwagon in the month of August, because it's still summer. We still have plenty of time. I was not going to do it. However, I stopped by this place by my house that does the dirty sodas, and on their fall menu was a dirty soda falled up, like you know what I mean, falled up. Uh, and I was like, well, I'm going to try it. It's not a pumpkin spice coffee, so it doesn't count. And that is how I rationalize so many things in my life, that if it wasn't what I originally said, then therefore it counts, right? I wasn't going to do pumpkin spice coffee until September 15th, but it's not coffee because it's soda, so it doesn't count. That is sort of the same as girl math, and I'm here for it. Anyways, I got it, and it was delicious. And so naturally I had to buy the ingredients so that I can make myself dirty sodas at home. Pepsi. I do Pepsi Zero because I don't like the diet aftertaste, but I want all of the caffeine, and I just prefer like the zeros, like a Coke Zero. Are they called Pepsi Zeros? You know what I'm talking about, like the one in the black can. Anyways, I don't drink a ton of soda. Anyways, I got it, and I made my own fall dirty soda, and it's like pumpkin spice and soda, and it's delicious. So I jokingly was like, not only am I on my basic white girl shit, I'm on my basic white girl shit, because we all know that these dirty sodas took off because of the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, which how much more basic or white girl do you get? And then obviously the pumpkin spice. Let's bring in all fall things as early as possible. So there we are. And no regrets. I have no problems with that. Also, I have to say, I went to my little Vander brunch with Tom Schwartz last weekend, and it was amazing. It was absolutely fantastic. I remember there was a time in my life where I was like this little shy. I know, you'll never believe that. And maybe not shy per se, but shy in the sense of like public speaking was not my thing. I was not getting up at the front of the classroom to put myself out there. I didn't want a solo in choir, none of those types of things. And then somewhere along the way, last weekend rolls around, there is hundreds and hundreds of people, hundreds of people in this establishment. And somehow or another, I end up with a microphone. Unfortunately, I don't know the words to the song that's on, but I end up with a microphone. Like Tom Schwartz hands the microphone over, and I end up with it. And so I ad lib the words to this song that I don't know and turn it into what I want it to be and to say all of the things that I want to say to this, Bravo celebrity. And I'm so excited about it. Everybody's cheering. And then I finally give the microphone back to Tom Schwartz, and he's like, "Oh my God, I think I'm in love." Boy, me too. It was so much fun. Later on in the day, he also passed around a bottle of champagne. Actually, my girlfriend was like, it was probably Prosecco, Brittany. Look, I don't care what it was. It was a bottle full of bubbles. He popped it. He took a drink out of it. I ended up with this bottle. I shared a bottle of champagne with Tom Schwartz, and so did my girlfriend that I went with. And it wasn't until like the next day that she points out, like, how many people's mouths were on that bottle? I mean, only like five. 5 strangers. 5 strangers. And we don't care. Like, that's fine. So all in all, it was a great time. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. And I love that for me. Me and my girlfriend had a great time. And he's actually just an adorable little human. So anyways, that was that. And I really just wanted to share how awesome it was, even though I talked about it last week relentlessly. I wanted to let you all know. Also, this week. So, the world is full of ups and downs. And I know last week I mentioned just like family shit, and family shit is my least favorite shit. It's the worst. And so, when things get that way, right? When things go so sideways like that, and my family shit starts to impact me, my like peace becomes the only thing in the world that I can focus on, right? I have fought so hard for my peace and my safety and my sanity, and just to be mentally like zen as a Brittany can possibly be. And so this week I have just been obsessed with my peace. So I have been like a little old lady, more so than normal. I got these adult sticker things, and I should have brought them. They are like these teeny tiny little stickers, and you get a set of tweezers, and then you put them on, it comes with like a card essentially that you stick them on to create or to like recreate the picture on the cover. And so you have to layer these stickers, and they're like 3-dimensional. And so it takes a little bit of time. It takes a lot of like focus. And so I have been doing those like every day. I just sit around and play with, with stickers and drink tea. And I am obsessed with it. Also, tea. I'm back on my tea shit. Like all of the tea. I've drank so much tea this week. And it was, and then I was sitting on my bathroom floor the other night with my cup of tea, watching my cat play with her like little jingly ball in the bathtub. She just hits it around and plays in the bathtub with it. And I just sat there and watched her for like 40 minutes. This is all I want in my life, to sit on my bathroom floor with a cup of sleepy tea and just have my fucking peace. Like, I don't think that's too much to ask. Anyways, so that has been it. Oh, and lots of like instrumental music. Like not any real music with beat or words or sound, just like so calm and peaceful in my in my space, and that's all that I can like focus on. I get home and I'm like, oh my God, the peace. Let me have the peace. So it's been it's it's been a journey, right? It's been a journey. With all that, my ache and relief of the week. Oh my gosh. My ache of the week was I was on call one night this past week, and I ended up being awake for like 40 plus hours straight because of the on-call shift and how everything ended up working out. And that sucked. That sucked. Your girl is no spring chicken. Like 40 hours of no sleep is I like what? And why was that ever a thing that we were okay doing when we were young? Right? Why was that okay to like go out, go to work, go out, go to work? Like how are we why? I don't know. I don't know why that was a thing, because your girl appreciates her sleep. With all of that, my relief of the week was that moment that I finally got to lay down after all of that time, and just climbed into my bed. I, no lie, was asleep by 5:15 that evening that I finally got to lay down. And as soon as I laid in my bed, I was like, oh my God, I'm too old for this shit. And also, why does anybody take advantage of sleep and laying down? Oh my God, it was glorious. My relief of the week was that moment, that tiny little 30 seconds before I finally was unconscious, that 30 seconds of like, oh, this is nice. This is nice. So sometimes that's all it takes. Just 30 seconds of greatness. That was my relief of the week. Also, I told you I was back on my tea shit, right? So I use the same sleepy time. It's not actually sleepy time tea, but like it's sleepy time tea. um, and I don't know what brand it is. I don't know what kind it is. It's just the kind that I have always gotten. Well, there was a different kind in my house, like this lavender chamomile kind. And so I was like, okay, well, let's switch it up. Maybe I want, like, with the amount of tea that I've drank, maybe that is what I want. And so I drink it, and I'm standing there and I'm like, you know what this tastes like? This tastes like leaves in water. Leaves in water. And I was like, yep. And I kind of like it. I kind of like this leaves in water. I do. I kind of like this leaves in water. And so I'm like pondering it, and I was like, I'm going to write it down. I'm going to write down that this tea tasted like leaves in water so that I can talk about it on the podcast. So I do. I go to write it down. And when I write it down, and it wasn't right away, right? This is like, that's not how my brain works. It was like the next day. The next day, I was like, oh, right. Let me write down about this leaves in water comment. It was not until I wrote it down on paper. How ridiculous that sounds, because it is 100% in fact leaves in water. Brittany, of course it tastes like leaves in water, you dumb head. Like, you goofy ass. So yeah, leaf water, tea, same but different. I don't know why it like popped into my head that way, that I was like really identifying something like, I know exactly what this tastes like. No, you goof. So, yeah. You know what? I'm going to blame it on the lack of sleep. That's what I'm going to blame it on, is the lack of sleep. All right. So for 920 years, or all of the months, I feel like it's just been a very long time, I've talked about a boundary episode. Boundaries. You're probably like, shut up, Brittany, shut up about your boundaries. I've talked about boundaries, and now the time has finally come that we're going to have a boundary episode. And we're not going to have just one boundary episode. We're actually going to have 3. This is going to be a 3-part series, because whenever I went to start putting it all together, I was like, oh my God, there's too much information for one episode, and I didn't want it to be a 20-hour long episode. So 3 episodes, 3-part series about boundaries, because they're so important. And I think at the end of the day, like, none of us are experts, even if we like to think we are. And we could all use a little bit of improvement in them. And, you know, they take a lot of work. And it's like when we master them in one area, then we like go to work and we're like, oh yeah, our boundaries suck here. So, you know, it's a process. It is a journey, if ever there was a journey. So here's the deal. Like, boundaries, they're not they aren't about being like cold or cruel or auditioning for the role of like the family villain. Although I am she and she is me. Like, I don't know how I got to be her, but I am. It's because I have boundaries. But they're about survival, which is why I have them. They're about survival. And without them, you're basically just like volunteering to be everybody's doormat or to never have your own personal needs met. And let's be honest, like, you're a person too. You deserve to have your needs met as much as anybody else. Um, and you know, when you have boundaries, then you get a little bit of your time back, a little bit of your peace back. And maybe you get back, like, I don't know, some personality that isn't built entirely on caffeine and resentment. Or not. Maybe not the resentment part, but you'll never take my caffeine away from me. All right. So at the most bottom line, what is a boundary? What is a boundary, and why do we need them? And I think it is important to identify this because boundaries has become one of those like trigger words that society and social media and everything is like latched onto, that it just becomes like a trendy thing to say, a trendy thing to do, a trendy thing to like toss around, just a word to toss around because it makes sense in that moment. But like, really, we need to not let it be that. Like, we need to really understand, like, what is a boundary? And it's not, again, it's not about being mean. It ultimately is about self-respect, because who's the most important? You're the most important. You're the most important. You are the main character. You're the main character in your life. I'm the main character in my life, and so on and so forth. Right. And if I'm not okay, I can't be okay for somebody else. And it's not vice versa. It's genuinely not. Like, we cannot continue to give to like out of an empty cup, out of an empty bucket, even though we think that we can. So, right? I mean, that makes sense, right? You know? So anyways, like, boundaries, they're not fences like built in anger, because that would be you being petty and rude and then calling it self-care. Self-care is another one of those words that gets tossed around so casually that it's like, self-care, self-care. And it like, ooh, ooh, it is like identified with like going to the spa and candles and like so woo-woo. But it's like, self-care isn't about being like woo-woo. It's not about candles and lavender and a bubble bath. Although if that's your self-care, like, you do you. I can't tell you the last time I took a bubble bath. That sounds terrible. People soup. But it is like, self-care is important as boundaries. And so let's not just be like, I can be a rude bitch and it's self-care. No. Boundaries need to be set. And boundaries aren't impenetrable like Fort Knox, allegedly. They're more like a sturdy door with a lock and a key, and you can open it whenever you want to. You can let whoever you want come through that. And when you're ready to shut it again, you can shut it again. Like it's up to you. You have control over this, right? The same way you use your front door to your house. You open it, you close it. Salesperson knocks on your door, you don't open it. Your favorite human in the whole wide world knocks on your door, you do open it, right? So we can make exceptions. Things can change. Boundaries can be either physical boundaries, like don't come to my house, don't touch me. Please use the 6-foot rule that COVID taught us when deciding where to sit near me, because 6 feet that way is a perfect spot for you, right? So they could be those physical boundaries, or they could be the psychological limits that you set for yourself and for others. And so those are your feelings, those are your emotions, those are your thoughts, your all of those types of things, right? Like you're allowed to speak up for yourself, that if something is said to you and it doesn't land right, you're allowed to be like, hey, I don't like the way that landed on me. That is one of those like psychological limits. Right. Anyways, boundaries also support autonomy and your personal identity. And again, with like your personal self-respect. And you need to be able to put yourself before anybody else. You need to know who you are and what your limits are. And boundaries help us do that. They help to reduce codependency and 100% help to reduce like that emotional exhaustion, right? Again, back to like giving out of a bucket that is empty. You're going to be exhausted. You're depleted. There's nothing coming back into your bucket. Like, what are you giving? You're giving time, energy, all of the things. And that can be really, really, really exhausting for you. Ultimately, they protect your well-being everywhere. Home, work, friends, romantic relationships, etc. Like even your boundaries in the grocery store, right? Like the guy who comes up and stands too close to you at the 7-Eleven, and you're like, bro, why are you standing so close to me? That happened last week. Like, why is this guy? Why can I feel his breath on me? Gross. So like boundaries are important everywhere, and they really do help preserve your own independence. Like it's so easy for us to be compassionate and to care about other people, to where our independence starts to bleed into other people and other situations. And it's like, what about us? What about you? What about you? And does that make sense? That you matter? that you matter, and that these are the reasons why we need boundaries. Like those all feel like such huge things. Your independence, your identity, your self-respect, your time, those feel like massive things to preserve and take care of. And yet we have such a hard time with that, even though we know that that's important. So it's like, if they're so important, Brittany, if they're so important, why are they so damn hard? I feel you. I feel you on that one. They are hard. It is really easy to sit here and be like, set your boundaries, kids, friends, take care of you. But I know that they're hard. They're hard for me. They're hard for they're hard. Nobody said that they were easy. There are a handful of things that, and of course there's more, right? I'm sure there's a bigger extensive list. I'm sure I'm going to go through this and somebody's going to be like, none of that applies to me, but this does. I'm only one girl. I'm only one girl in the world. I only have this much knowledge and experience in my brain. But there are so many reasons. I would say people pleasing, all of my people pleasing friends, they probably have some of the hardest time with boundaries, because they want people to be happy, because they don't want somebody to be upset, because, you know, they have this like, my worth is attached to what I do and how it's received. And that can, that could come from childhood. That could come from the house that they grew up in. That could come from trauma. Like there's lots of reasons for that. It could come out of just being like so kind and non-confrontational that it turns into this like people pleasing sort of thing that you don't have boundaries because you don't want to say no. There's fear of shame or rejection or the response, right? Like, and I'm sure a good example is school. Like when you're at school, you want to fit in, you want to fit in with your friends, so you don't necessarily want to say no. I think this part is like where peer pressure comes in for like kids in school. They don't want to say no, even though they know the answer is no, because they want to fit in. They don't want to be rejected. Nobody wants to be rejected, not by friends, not by partners, not by, I don't know, even at work. Like, right? People don't want to go against the grain at work and be like, Brittany doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. Or the response, right? Like that can be problematic as well. Like, okay, well, if I say no, they're going to scream at me. They're going to yell at me. They're going to ice me out. I'm going to get the silent treatment for the next week. She's going to withhold sex, blah, 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 right? There's all of these reasons that people just stop setting boundaries for themselves whenever they're in different types of situations. I didn't set boundaries for myself for a long time with the rattlesnake because it was like I just wanted her to approve of me. So it was like, sure, you can talk to me however you want. You can treat me however you want. I can be mad. I can dislike it. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to fight this because I want you to be proud of me. I want you to accept me and to be my mom. So that can be a struggle as well. No role modeling, right? I don't know where you grew up. I don't know your life. But, we don't always have parents or caregivers that raise us that have great boundaries either. So if we're raised by caregivers that don't have great boundaries, then we might not have great boundaries either. Which is, that's a thing. Or if you're raised by like a single parent and you never saw them implement boundaries with like a romantic partner, how on earth would you go into a romantic relationship and know how to set those boundaries? You wouldn't, right? Like there's not a problem in that. We're just not shown all the time, and it's not like we come out of the womb knowing how to set boundaries. And so most times boundaries are lessons that you're learning well into adulthood with your own families and friends and children, because like we aren't always taught that. I mean, some of the basics, I think we're taught a lot about physical boundaries, and that is kind of where that gets left off. It's all of the other things that we're not always taught how to do, all of the like those psychological type of boundaries. You can have like early emotional consequences, and I think that's a lot of like where my situations were, right? If I said something, if I tried to set a boundary, it had some other consequence. um I remember one time going to the rattlesnake and being like, am I adopted? And she was like, no, Brittany, why would you say that? Why would you think you're adopted? And I was like, you guys are so mean to me. Like, you guys are so mean, and you say such mean, hurtful things, and you hurt me. And I feel like a parent wouldn't do that. So I must be adopted. I understand that that's a big, heavy statement, but the response was years and years and years. I'm sure if we still spoke, she would still mention it. Like years of just backlash and nasty comments and turning it into like the gaslighting and using it to be hurtful and harmful. So when things like that happen, you don't say things anymore, right? You don't speak up. You don't have your own autonomy. You don't speak up for your own identity and what works for you. There's a lot of emotional enmeshment when we have lack of boundaries. And, whenever we're totally enmeshed with other people and other people, whether, again, who, it doesn't matter who it is, that's very hard for us to separate as well and to set boundaries. I did a poll. I did some poll. You know me and my polls. I did a poll, and 100% of the people that responded to this poll said that they felt guilty after saying no. And while that does not surprise me at all, that 100% of you all thought that, I wanted to bring that to light to be like, this just goes to show how hard boundaries are for people. They are hard. And then even when you're able to do them, you walk away with some guilt, and that's totally normal. That's normal. We want to help one another. We love one another. Like, we want to care for our friends and our families. And, that doesn't always land well, right? Like, your buddy asks you to help them move. And also, nobody likes to help anybody move. But your buddy asks you to help them move, and you're like, God, I'd rather be at my kid's soccer game or this or that, or I just really don't want to spend my day lifting things up and down the stairs. And you say yes anyway. Or you say, no, I have to take my kid to their soccer game. I can't do it. And your buddy comes back later and is like, oh my God, it took me until midnight doing it because I didn't have any help doing it, blah, 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 blah. You're going to feel bad. You did it for a reason, but you're going to feel bad. Sorry, bro. I had to take care of my kid, right? So we feel bad. Doesn't mean we don't want to do the things, but it does mean that we feel bad a lot. You're not alone. We all have a story. So we know what boundaries are. And now we know a little bit about why they're hard. But what happens? What happens if we don't set boundaries? Oh, people will get over it. Oh, they'll figure out how to move themselves. Oh, it's no big deal. I'll get over it. False. False. All of this stuff is false. What happens when we don't set boundaries? Stress. We ourselves become more stressed depending on what the boundary was not. Right. Even that example about moving. Okay. Say you did say, sure, I'll help you. Now you're stressed out about like your kid at the soccer game and how that's going to play out. And is your kid going to understand? Is your kid going to miss you? Is your partner going to be like, you chose to help Billy move and you weren't here, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's stressful. And that's just like such a basic like thing. Stress, anxiety, depression, all of these things come from poor boundaries. In fact, in 2021, there was a survey done or wherever they get statistics from. Research was not my thing. Just tell me the data. But 38% of people that were inquired. What the hell am I talking about? In 2021, 38% of the people that were like diagnosed with depression, anxiety, or just like this overwhelming amount of stress, they were able to attribute poor boundaries to all of their anxiety and their depression. And that makes absolute sense because if you're not taking care of you, who the fuck is? Honestly, like, let's be for real. Who's taking care of you if you're not? And so that's for real, 38%. And that's just like in the people that are like going and being diagnosed with like depression or anxiety and things like that. That's certainly not even mainstream people, right? Like the masses as a whole, you can be stressed out over lack of boundaries every day, right? If you're over here giving money, helping somebody with their bills constantly, and you're like, well, shit, now how do I pay my own bills? Like, how do I do this? That's stressful, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to the doctor and asking for Zoloft. That just means like now you're stressed, this extra stress that maybe wouldn't have been there before if you weren't overextending yourself helping others. Or now you're exhausted, right? Like, example, again, I volunteer for my night duty shifts. Like whenever I'm on call, nobody tells me I have to be on call. I just am. Like I volunteer for those particular days and those particular times. And so while it's really frustrating that I didn't get any sleep, I did that for myself or to myself. And so it's important to be able to be aware of that and be mindful of that. And it's like, okay, well, do you do it? Like, do you give up a shift? Do you say, hey, this actually isn't working for me? This sucks. Like, right? Like that can cause, leads me into my next statement. That can cause burnout. Right? If I had to do that every single week and that was the situation every single week, I would hate going to work every day. Like that would be really, really shitty and I would be burnt out. I'd be tired. I'd be exhausted all the time. Um, Lack of boundaries on top of like the stress and the burnout can lead to emotional dysregulation. I mean, think about it. If you're stretched so thin because you keep taking on more and more and more and you don't delegate and you don't ask for help, you don't set any boundaries to be like, no, actually, I have too much on my plate. I cannot take that on as well. Then you develop like a little bit more of a short fuse. You're a little bit more emotionally dysregulated. Maybe you're tearful. Maybe you're snappy. Maybe you're now isolating yourself because you're like, I cannot handle one more fucking human in the whole wide world, right? Like there's lots of ways that emotional dysregulation happens, but that makes sense, right? If you're giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and not taking care of you, you have no more bandwidth. And when you don't have any more bandwidth, you respond. You respond. It can also lead to like just chronic stress on your body, which has some of those like high blood pressure, poor sleep, weight gain, things like that. And that's not awesome. It seems like such a small thing to do, but it has such big impacts, right? We all know how stress has impact on our body, on our heart. Like the Surgeon General's been talking about it for 100 years or whoever, whoever it was. We know that to be true. So if we know that there's all of these potential consequences of this, we know that none of this feels good. Let's do better. The other part of this, and so those are some of like the things that like physically happen to you, mentally happen to you. But let's be honest, whenever we have shitty boundaries with other people, this has like this relationship carnage because typically we become resentful. We might give and give and give, and then we become resentful. Why am I always the only one giving? Why aren't you ever there for me? I don't have time to take care of myself. You don't care about my needs, blah, 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 blah. This wreaks havoc on our relationships, or if we just don't address anything at all, like, oh, you got drunk and spoke to me any kind of way and I just like let it happen, I didn't say a word. No, I'm still walking away being like, yeah, that time you got drunk and you called me names, how about fuck you? Like, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything because you're going through something. No, I don't care what you're going through, don't talk to me like that. So, and vice versa, right? Like we're all human. But that means other people get to have boundaries as well. Like they do go both ways. So it can cause a lot of problems in relationships and how we start to interact with other people. And it might then be that resentment. It might be feeling more conflicted than you normally would, right? Like think about it like you let it slide this time and then you get in another argument and it's really easy because now it's still just at the surface. That past argument still at the surface, and so it's just hanging around longer and longer and longer, and it's starting to build and build and build, and that's really 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 tough. um and it's also showing people that they can treat us any kind of way. if we're not sticking up for ourselves. You know, I had a friend that every time she would drink, she would send me the nastiest text messages, the nastiest. I would wake up in the morning to 20 texts that told me what a piece of shit I was and what a shitty friend I was and how I took advantage of everybody and all of those types of things. And then it would be like done and over with and like, hey, let's go spend time together. Like, let's go out again. And it would happen all the time. And it was like, okay, I know you're going through a hard time. I know you're struggling. I know you're stressed. I know this. I know that. And at some point, it's just like, you have got to stop. You have got to stop talking to me like this. And then there was the gaslighting and all of this. And it's like, okay, this enough is enough, right? So, you know, who's to say if there wouldn't have been firmer boundaries in the first place to be like, no, this happened once. Okay. This happened twice. Not okay. We're done with this. Like, we're not going to, who knows? Who knows how things would have played out. But any hoodles. So it happens, right? These things don't just go away. And, you know, while we can't control other people and what they do, we can control ourselves and how we respond to that and how we react to that and how we want to walk away caring for ourselves. Um, and again, it can have some of that, like the enmeshment, and you're just stuck in this like enmeshment hell. You have this lack of independence. You see it a lot in like really toxic relationships, and that's really unfortunate. And then it's like, you know, you struggle to think that you can be anybody without that other person. And you can. You can. Friendship fatigue. I mentioned that, right? And like family chaos. I think the family one is so hard because we're like, but this is our family. This is our blood. We want to do that. Being a parent of adult children, we want to do so many things because we want our children to succeed and we want them to be great and we want them to be wonderful. We don't want them to struggle the way that we struggled or something like that. And, you know, that doesn't mean that it always goes well. You know, like I think I've mentioned it before, there's a lot of drugs within my family that I don't fuck with that. That is absolutely not okay for me. And so I have very, very firm boundaries about that. And I've been called plenty of names because of that, you know, that I'm a bitch, that I'm overreacting, that I just need to let it go because it doesn't impact me. It does impact me. It does impact me. And I have a response to that. Like that, and the response isn't always okay. I, in fact, watched my cousin snort a line of Coke one time at my birthday and responded in a very physically violent way, and then was also kicked out of her house at my own birthday. This is family chaos. Why are we putting ourselves in any of these situations? We don't have to. We don't have to. And I can't force somebody to respect my boundaries to be like, hey, I'm around. Don't do drugs in front of me. But I can be like, I'm actually just not going to go around. Like, you might be great. You might be wonderful. You might be the greatest, coolest human in the whole wide world. But this doesn't work for me. This doesn't sit right with me. And so therefore I can't go around this anymore because now I'm going to act a right fool. I'm going to act a fool. I'm going to step out of pocket. I'm going to act ridiculous. And then I have to deal with that shame and those consequences of that. And that's not, we don't love that. We don't love that. So it's important to take care of ourselves beforehand, set those boundaries beforehand so that we're not caught up in some sort of outrageous response afterwards. Does that make sense? I know that's hard, but once you start, setting boundaries, you find peace. And what a cool feeling peace is, to feel peace in your own world, in your own walls, in your own, you know, emotional, mental well-being, just to feel this peace that you protect, that you know you protect, and that you're not going to let other people fuck with. Like, that's a damn good feeling. Enter all of my stickers and tea. Your self-worth improves and your self-esteem improves. And whenever you start to really know your worth, it becomes easier to set those boundaries and to enforce those boundaries because you know your time is worth something. You know that your feelings do matter. You know that your emotions also matter the same way. And you're able to implement those things. And whenever things go sideways, you're like, you know what? All right. I said my piece. This isn't working. I'm going to go. I'm going to walk away. That's okay. That's okay to do. You have stronger relationships because when people know what your boundaries are, they respect your boundaries. And quite honestly, the people that don't respect your boundaries after you've set them, those aren't the people that you want around in your life, anyways, at all. So while it might be hard to watch people go because they can't respect your boundaries, it goes back to that peace. Your peace and your safety, that matters even more. And it can be sad. It can be sad. You have less stress. You have less burnout. All of that starts to subside, right? Setting those boundaries at work. You're not going to have as much burnout at work. Like, I feel like we look at burnout associated with work a lot versus like burnout from activities we enjoy doing, right? So that's why I keep going back to the burnout with work. Um, and then of course you have like the better physical and mental health. That study also showed that there was 60% higher life satisfaction in people that are able to set boundaries. 60%. Better life satisfaction. Who does not want to be satisfied in their life? Like, there's more to just waking up and being miserable and going to sleep. Like, honestly. So if a couple little boundaries are going to improve your life satisfaction, that sounds incredible. And then the improved identity, which we love to know who we are. We love to know who we are, what we stand for, what we're willing to tolerate, what we're not. We love being able to know what our capacity is as it's creeping up, as opposed to only realizing it after it's too late, right? So, yeah. Saying no may feel really awkward at first, but so does, carrying, what am I talking about? So does crying in the Target parking lot. That feels awkward as well. Or, being kicked out of your own birthday party because you punched a cousin in the face for doing coke in front of you. That's awkward. That's awkward. That's embarrassing. And that has also residual effects and consequences. So you pick your poison. You pick your poison. What works for you? It doesn't have to work for me, and it doesn't have to work for the next person either. But what works for you? You get to make that choice. So next week, like I said, we're going to do a 3-parter. So next week, we're going to get into like the real mess of how you actually set those boundaries without sounding like a robot or without ghosting everybody in your life, right? You don't have to be alone to have strong boundaries. You don't have to get rid of everybody to keep strong boundaries. Think less of the theory and more of the, like, what do I actually say when my boss asks me to work on a Saturday again, or when my friend asks me to move and I actually don't want to. So yeah, that's going to be boundaries part 2, the survival guide. The survival guide. Until then, tune in each week on Monday for new episodes. And if you laughed, learned, or just felt seen in your dysfunction, go ahead and like, follow, and subscribe. New episodes are out every Monday. The uncut raw version is on YouTube, far less edited. Actually, I don't think it's edited at all. And then see you next week for more chaos described as wisdom. In the meantime, don't be afraid to be great. Toodles, poodles, bye!